In a destroyed world that has been completely overrun by monsters, someone could be seen walking casually as if they were taking a stroll. He came upon a dead human being that was being eaten by monsters. His presence was then discovered, and the monsters came charging at him with intense speed and bloodlust. With a relaxed yet serious face, the mysterious man completely overpowered the monsters with his skills and brutally killed them like it was nothing. After a knock on the entrance to where the last of humanity was hiding, the entrance was open and the mysterious man was greeted like a hero. Jung Gyun, a hard player who was considered as someone strong, was surprised that someone was able to defeat A-class monsters so easily. But the person who was able to accomplish this was none other than Kang Tae-san, a player that had completed the tower on easy mode and should have been the weakest, but has now become humanity's last hope of survival. At the eating area, Tae-san was tired of eating the same potatoes every day, but there was nothing that could be done since food was limited. Outside of the tent, there was a commotion. It was a player who had just came out of the tower and was shocked by how far humanity was pushed back by the monsters. The player refused to face reality and was making it difficult for anyone to talk to him. Even after Tae-san tried to explain to him what had happened, he still refused to believe it, and there was only one conclusion left, which was to mercilessly beat him, and then he'll understand. Tae-san then requested a duel with Lee, who was a hard player, compared to Tae-san, who was an easy player. As such, Lee was taken aback that Tae-san had the audacity to challenge him to a duel. Tae-san then told him to shut up, which angered him, and with his skills ready, he charged right at Tae-san with no hesitation whatsoever. Lee was sure that his attack would be able to easily kill Tae-san, but was surprised that even after such a powerful attack, Tae-san took 0 damage, all because of his damage nullification skill. With the tip of Lee's sword in his hand, Tae-san casually mocked Lee for not doing any damage after saying he was weak. Tae-san then launched an attack of his own, while Lee was still surprised about what had happened. The attack that Tae-san threw seemed like it was going to deal a lot of damage, but Lee was surprised when he only took 49 damage after reducing the attack by half. Since there was a huge stat difference between easy and hard players, the damage was reduced, but Tae-san realized this and started activating skills which significantly multiplied his attack power. Anyone could tell that his next attack would be a lot more powerful than the first. Lee was surprised that Tae-san had only barely tapped him on the head, but all that surprise quickly faded away as his head got slammed to the ground with such force that he lost consciousness for a second. And just like that, the fight was over without even a scratch on Tae-san. After the fight was over, Lee had no choice but to believe that this camp was the last of humanity after he had struggled so much inside the tower to fight against the monsters. When the world was still at peace, monsters suddenly invaded the earth, and when humanity was on the brink of extinction, a window suddenly appeared, and surviving humans had to choose from 4 different modes, which was easy, normal, hard, and alone mode, to which they will enter the tower and clear it to gain power to fight against the monsters to save the earth. After the fight had ended, Lee had finally calmed down and was taken away by the others. Jung Gyun then showed up and started questioning how he was able to defeat a hard player so easily, and how he managed to get so many powerful skills despite clearing the tower on easy mode, to which Tae-san just told him that it was hard work. In that moment, a girl returned and was being praised by the other players after she had returned safely, and her name was Lee Tae-yun. After meeting each other, Tae-san looked around and commented on her artistic taste and wondered why the strongest human being alive was someone like her, as Lee Tae-yun sat in her chair gracefully. Tae-san then got straight to the point and asked why she had called for him. Tae-yun then mentioned the hard player that had caused the commotion before and thought that it was strange for an easy player to teach a hard player a lesson, as she showed Tae-san her powerful stats. She then asked Tae-san to show her his stats as well, which revealed a drastic difference in stat points, to which Tae-yoon commented that he was extremely weak, but for an easy player, he was decent. The tower was divided into 4 different difficulties. The higher the difficulty is, the higher the growth rate will be, and once you clear the tower and return, your growth is completely halted, which means you can't get stronger after leaving the tower. The only thing that could make a difference is the amount of skills one possesses. Tae-yoon then told Tae-san to stay still for a moment, as she used some of her most powerful skills and attacked him without hesitation, but no damage was dealt to him. The skills that Tae-san possesses are immensely powerful, but since skills are used based on stats, Tae-san was unable to use a majority of his skills, and so he had to live with the regret of having power but being unable to use it. Tae-san then got tired of thinking about it and was told by Tae-yoon that the next monster wave was coming, which meant that it was the end of humanity. In the first and second monster waves, humanity lost soul, and half of the hard players died. And in the third wave, they were only left with a small territory. This next wave meant the end of humans, since there were barely any capable players left. Even though they knew that they weren't going to win, they weren't going down without a fight, and Tae-san would have to fight 2 S-class monsters, while Tae-yoon took on the Apostle. Tae-san thought that it was too much for him alone, and that he could really die, but he was the only one that was capable enough to do it. Tae-san then left and went ahead to announce the news to everyone, but didn't notice that Tae-yoon was holding an unusual stone in her hand. After Tae-san had announced the news, everyone fell into despair, since they knew that everyone was going to die this time. Jung-gyun and Tae-san were on the top of the entrance walls and talked about the incoming monster waves. They felt sorry for the player that had just arrived from the tower, as it hadn't even been a day since he was out and he was about to die. Jung-gyun then said that it was sad, since if everyone had done at least half of what Tae-san did while they were inside the tower, they would have been a lot more powerful, and they would have been able to survive the monster waves. But there was nothing that they could do more than await their impending death. And as death approached them from the horizon, Jung-gyun was impressed by the amount of monsters that was approaching, as Tae-san just stood there and watched. Tae-san then used his skill and launched himself into the air, and then searched for the 2 S-class monsters, to which he was able to easily find them with no problem at all. He then went straight for them, and as soon as he arrived, all of the monsters' passive skills activated, which, if he was any normal person, he would have died instantly. But since he was Tae-san, he was able to nullify all of their skill and prepared himself for a long, drawn-out fight. Tae-san then stood there face to face with the monsters as he started approaching them. He then used his skills to analyze them and went straight for the monster that had the lowest stamina, as it would be easier to kill since his damage output was low. Tae-san kept on attacking the monster, even though his damage was mediocre. He then tried going for the monster's head, but was hit with a strong attack from the monster. But luckily, all of the damage was nullified. He then realized the monster's attack pattern and started to predict its movements, which allowed him to get close to the monster to deal an attack which was successful, but he got pushed back. He then went in again for another attack, but the monster received help from the other S-class monster. But that meant nothing to Tae-san, as he used his skill to force a duel with him and the weaker monster, which left it defenseless. With his skill activated, Tae-san only received damage from the monster in front of him as they stared each other down. Tae-san then started using attack multiplying skills as he realized that with his low stats, using his skills was the only way he could hope to win. With his skills fully activated, Tae-san then charged at the monster with incredible speed and dealt an incredible amount of damage to the monster, which he ended up defeating. The problem, though, was that he had used up a lot of his skills and his stamina was running low, and there was still one more S-class monster remaining, but he wasn't planning on giving up just yet. The fight between Tae-san and the S-class monster raged on as he chipped away at his health little by little, even though he was in no condition to continue fighting. With the fight finally coming to an end, Tae-san managed to defeat the monster and had managed to gain an unusual skill, and even managed to amaze the gods with his incredible fighting spirit. With a damaged body, Tae-san dragged himself back to humanity's last stronghold, but the only thing that greeted him when he arrived were dead bodies all over the destroyed territory, and Tae-yun's lifeless body right in the center of everything. The strongest human being alive was completely crushed by the apostle monster, and the only ones who remained were just him and the monster. The monster then appeared before him, declaring that his death is near. He then tricked the monster and managed to land a blow, but despite his unwavering will, his efforts were in vain, as he too fell to the monster. With his stamina completely drained, he laid there on the ground bleeding out. He was allowed 1 more minute to stay alive from his skill. The monster could sense that his death was near and didn't pay any attention to him. As he laid there regretting the choice he made before entering the tower, he finally accepted his death and gave up on everything. But right before he could enter the afterlife, he saw something in Tae-yun's hand which caught his attention, which the monster was trying to protect. He managed to use his last skill, which was Time Stop, and went straight for the stone in Tae-yun's hand. After analyzing it, he realized that it was a time reversal stone and wondered why Tae-yun didn't use it instead of dying. But he didn't think about it for too long, as he now has a chance to change the past and create a chance for humanity to survive and prevent them from dying. And seizing the opportunity, Tae-san used the time reversal stone and was sent back into the past.